Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening, replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. It's always appreciated. So just always start out every episode giving everybody thanks for tuning in live, making it another day to listen to the podcast. This is the vault episode 344, language of a trustee. Own nothing, control everything. So always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the Vault episode 344. Language of a trustee. Own nothing, control everything. So I just want to start off by giving thanks once again for everybody that's listening to the episode, live or in the replay. This is one of those episodes that we get in trustee training and people contacting the vault and what we see in the public, the difference between public and private language. So we're going to talk about it today. Language of a trustee. This is one of those Achilles heels of trustees that may be first generation. Because they may have been given a public school education, they may not have the language of trusteeship, which some people say, well, what's the language of trusteeship, which is law. And then when you think about it, business is law. So it's just learning the language of law. Language of a trustee could be just language of law. And so that means you learning legalese. It's very important. We're not lawyers, we're not financial advisors. This is not meant to be financial advice. These are conversations that we have with our trustees when they come through the program and they talk about help us out. What could be our Achilles heel? What could be the greatest growing pain that we have to grow through in the beginning? Which is the language of a trustee. Own nothing, control everything. It's the thought process. It is the language that you're speaking. It is, are you still talking ownership or are you talking trusteeship? That's what it comes down to. So trustees go through the trustee training program. They do their best to get that language engrossed in them in a 12-week course, possibly more. But they at least go through a process of being reprogrammed, retrained into a process, or even just continue given a continuing program of education, which feeds them more and more content, specifically about business and moving more into trusteeship or staying in trusteeship in that respect. So we get that a lot, where a lot of trustees want to speak the language. The language of the trustee is own nothing, control everything. Appreciate Jacksonville, Florida for tuning in live, listening, replay. Always appreciate Jacksonville, Florida for tuning in live, listening, replay. We got Mississippi tuning in live, listening, replay. Feel free to type into the chat, even in the replay, where you're listening live or listening to replay from. Just go ahead and type into the chat, even in the replay. And as well, if you're looking to subscribe, go ahead and subscribe, and as well click the notifications so you know when we go live. Appreciate everybody for doing that. So when we go live, we hear y'all on here. Appreciate Mississippi, appreciate Jacksonville, appreciate people for tuning in live, listening to replay. Language of a trustee comes down to the trustees having high demands of themselves and the people around them. Because people in trust deal with people in trust. See, these aren't common colloquialisms. These are things that is a fact. And in the language of a trustee, there is such one. And so when we talk about language of a trusteeship, it's coming from more from a business perspective. When we talk about this in a broader sense, we're talking about it from a business perspective, which probably would encourage most people to have a better abreast of the law system that they're engaging in, the environment that they're dealing in, coming at it from more of a top end CEO level, but still more of a perspective of own nothing, control everything, where you're looking at it as a trustee, as a servant, as a server, as opposed to what's called the owner. There's a big difference. When you're even in a position of trusteeship, you know that you lose liabilities when you're not in that position. But can you have liabilities? Sure, you are the trustee. You got to make good decisions. But when we talk about it, it being as what we call personal, there's a distinguishment between the personal and what's considered own nothing, control everything. So when we talk about that, there's a distinguishment in the mindset. But the biggest thing that trustees take away from the program, and they appreciate about the workshops, and they appreciate about the Sunday calls, and they appreciate about the one-on-ones is the continuous development of the language pattern. Because when you're either talking, you're either first generation wealth. Are you making a transition from employeeship to trusteeship? Are you making a transition from ownership to trusteeship? These are different thought processes. So and the different languages. And so in turn, the trustees have gained some of the feedback throughout the years has been the language, the conversations are quintessential to the development of a trustee. Specifically, if you don't come from trusteeship, if you're first gen, there's going to be very challenging. See, we're addressing what will be considered 80% of the population. 80% of the population is at least first generation wealth. At least. So, we know who the audience here is at the vault, listeners, and as well, if people are second gen, or even third gen, we've had those. So it that's fine. That's fine. We can work with them as well. Through the trustee training program. Christian at trustchristian.com is the email you can reach out to. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Feel free to email over. Language of a trustee: own nothing, control everything. But then, how is it you're not a trustee if you own everything? How can you be a trustee if you own everything? This is not just a company with a language, it's a company with a thought process. The lifestyle is a company with a thought process, not just the language. Oh, well, I'm a trustee, but I still got everything in my name. I got things in my name, I own things. And in turn, is that the language of a trustee? People say, oh no, well, I got to figure out this. I got to figure out how to get rid of this and do this and move this and blah, blah. And that's what the training program is for. It does work with people through those processes, because those are processes, and you want to make sure you're in contact and with the right people and doing the right procedures. Uh, and what is it that you're doing? And then the language of the trustee training program works with people to allow them to grow to those points. It's it's going to be obviously naturally embedded in the program, the trustee training program that we provide at the vault. But the language of a trustee, it's not so much that you can learn it from a book. It's more of actually engaging and having these conversations with other people that are in the same exact position as you are. And what's very elusive in what we said here was the exact. It has to be equal par value. So what happens is in trusteeship, some people may be in foundations. Not everybody's in a foundation. So when we talk about the language of a trustee, some people aren't speaking at that level. But when we talk about speaking to people in foundations, we have to know that they're speaking a different language now. Their own nothing, control everything. They're talking about it from a foundation perspective. It says own nothing, control everything. When you're in a foundation, you don't own it. It's charity. But see how immediately if you throw someone in these situations, people or people engage in these positions, people in these positions are naturally speaking this way. Why? Because the environment that they're in demands it. The vehicles that they're in demand it. They demand that they are actually, how shall we say this? They actually just want to make sure that you know what you're talking about, because people in these environments, they didn't get there by accident. And this is the challenge sometimes with first gens. First gens find this insurmountable weight to lift up, where there is no weight other than learning a language. When you learn a language, you can converse with people in the environment. When you can converse with people in the environment, you can be effective at getting things done. It's just communication skills. So at the Vault, we provide that, the communication skills class. You got to take the communication skills classes. Do people think they're above communication skills? No, that involves leadership. So language of a trustee, owner to control everything, is even knowing that you have to develop your skills as a trustee. And it's not just knowing the language, it's possibly speaking more than one, um, and things of that nature. The language of a trustee. You keep saying you gotta trust. You're gonna fail. If you own a trust, you're in the public sector. The reason why we say someone's gonna fail is because they're saying that they're going private, but they own a trust. My trust. My trust. My car. My house. They keep saying my. Me. I have. The language of a trustee is a discipline just as much as it is a language. This is one of those episodes that your family's gotta hear. Trustees, that your family's got to speak the language properly because they may think that what you're doing is crazy, but they say that they have a trust. They say that they have a will. They say they got everything in their name. And you're listening to them? Then you got people, once again, they may not be on the same page. Why? Because one person wants to own something and the other, multiple people want to own something in the family, and then you're the only one that wants to own nothing, control everything, though. They're not trying to control everything, but they want to own everything, right? So it's a conflict of interest. And it's challenging to pull away from these different type of relationships, friends, family, business associates, because people in trust deal with people in trust. Language of a trustee. The discipline is being around people that speak that language and investing in yourself and making sure that you can get invested in because you've invested in you and your attempt at your language development for trusteeship. You'll be rewarded. It's one of those things we have a trustee that tells people all the time, says, if you learn this language, it's pretty powerful. You go in the right rooms with it, you know what you're doing. But how many people know what the 1% are doing? First of all, how many people really know what the 1% are doing? And then are they doing it the exact way? Because once you find out the 1% way, do you think you can change the 1% way? If all the 1%ers are doing the same thing, because there is a collage of them, they actually have honed in. The outliers are doing the same thing. They're the 1%. What is it that they did right? They learn a language. You'll get some of the same people in business that will say that they never will go in politics, but somehow they end up in politics because they know the language of administration. They know board. They know executive trusteeship. They know this. They know senior trusteeship. They know CEOship. They know foundership. The language of a trustee is that. So what happens? Trust Christian in the vote. We're coming from an employee mindset. 80% first generation. You got to learn the language. The language is about around being around the people that speak the language. Is very small. So it may be an investment for you to travel. It may be an investment for you to give of yourself in many different ways because the relationships in the 1% are going to obviously be a little irreplaceable if you're first gen going for the 1% status. You're going to associate with people in those categories that are of like mind. Once again, we can't overemphasize it, but people in trust deal with people in trust. The language of trusteeship says that you invest in your dictionary, the Black's Law Dictionary. That's the language of trusteeship, is the Black's Law Dictionary. Some people say, do I need the newest version or oldest version? Having a version is a great start. Do some people get it? Some people do. Do many get it? No. Why? Because think about it. Trustee training is for generational wealth. How many people are thinking about generational wealth? Going from one generation to the next generation with their money. Most people are trying to have a good time in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s. They're looking to have a good time in their 60s. And then most people hope they can just keep afloat. That's the 80% consensus. Looking to go from first gen to second gen in wealth. How you gonna go? Most people that are say they're looking for generational wealth, 80%, when it comes to them looking for generational wealth, would you say that top 20%? The 80 aren't gonna make it. The top 20 of that 80, because it's in 1%, and then there's some people that are, yeah, they slowly getting through. They went from the 80 to the 20. The ones that are gonna put in the work. The ones that are going to research, the ones that are going to invest in themselves, the ones that are going to invest in their relationships, ones that are going to do those things. Most people in the world, when it comes to generational wealth, though, they're not looking at passing anything along and don't know how to pass it along properly. And you see this repeatedly in the public. You see it repeatedly. Now the right people say, "Oh, we just need to make sure we structured right." But what happens when you don't have any training? You don't know you need a diary. What happens when you don't have anything to pass along that's written to the next generation about what is it that you experienced on a day-to-day basis as a trustee? Where they gonna go learn that trustee education from? Outside the family? Outside the structure? That's the difference. You start the education early for the children. And when it comes to the public, once again, and the language of a trustee, trustees, y'all have to know that there's a difference between public and private. I know that. There's a lot of people out here, they don't speak that private language. So you don't want to have a false expectation to think that they're supposed to know the private language. You have to know how to talk now to the public people and still grow as a private trustee and how you're speaking. Because that's what you're focused on as a trustee, is developing your speech, developing your acumen as a trustee. That's a language. The acumen is a part of a language. Well, the language is a part of a business acumen more so. How can someone grow in a trusteeship where people are in conflict about the language they're speaking? Well, you're going against the system. The system says own nothing, control everything. So why would someone still be speaking in the my's, ours? Why? Why would they allow themselves to keep speaking this way? Because they haven't became a trustee mentally. They're still an employee, but they want to retire. They want to leave their jobs. Everybody says they want to leave their job. Oh, I don't want to work my job forever. I want to do some other things with my life. Right. If you're doing the same thing now, it's safe to say people are going to be doing the same thing in years. Just because you switch jobs doesn't mean you're still not working a job. Trustees know that trusteeship's not a job. It's a servant. It's a servanthood. It's a stewardship. Whether that's for charity or for uh, family uh, or community, uh, those things are always going to be upheld as trustees, and they grow. So, always appreciate all the trustees for tuning in live, listening to replay. We've heard this issue for years with trustees, which is not just their language, but their friends and their family not speaking the language, and them being able to sit around, have conversations with these people, and they feel like there's a gap now that they've learned trusteeship, now that they're in trusteeship, and there's a gap. And of course, there's going to be a gap, but you just have to not expect them to know private conversation. They're not in the 1%. So this is why you don't really even see people have conversations about private stuff in the public. And that's partially because it's not a language that's for the public. The public is separate. Public and private don't mix. They're separate. So the language of a trustee is it's not passive and it's not passive aggressive. We could say it's market neutral, which allows it to uh, go into the public if it needs to, or stay in the private if it needs to. That's the language of a trustee. So appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listen, replay. Feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. You want to enroll in the trustee training. We got some last minute seats for the end of this year. We're going to do our workshop at the beginning of next year, but we're going to definitely go rock out with some trustees here at the end of the year. Definitely got some great episodes coming up here for the end of the year here, so look forward to it. Feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace. Enjoy.